There's the pagoda that we visited earlier. And we're now just around the corner from where I parked my bike to walk up. And this very impressive complex. We'll go inside in a moment. Just inside these three large structures of very defensive nat spirits, I think. Very pretty grounds. I suspect tourists come here. Very nicely maintained. Very beautiful tiles. The gauntlet, and then into or under the stupa. It should be a pagoda. To do some restoration, chipping off the old plaster. Like someone has already scrolled out the outline of the artwork that will be there. Some very pretty colors in it. Cared for Buddha. I wonder if where those bananas are the names of the donor. This represents an ongoing, intense effort to upgrade not only this complex but all the rest, because it is the legacy of Myanmar and it is its future. Thinking the capitals on all of those columns, these sparkle even from here quite a bit. This is pretty, isn't it? And it's so mosque-like. Hopefully all of this pretty work will get embellished. Hopefully that's what that ladder's for, is working on the outside. No slouch of a project. This is a massive complex. You can see how this capital just shimmers, and perhaps that whole column versus the area above it and the area on that back wall, all of which has yet to be done. Walls look like they're getting cleaned up. They're looking bright. It's going to be beautiful. The wash of that color over the whole wall, and then go through a process of removing it like he's doing it, which of course polishes up the mirrors, leaving the grout in between more heavily covered and more evenly colored. I think this is just another entry hallway or excuse for tourist shops. This may be a small museum for the artwork. I'll give a relatively quick pan to. It looks like battles, no surprise, or at least the military, no surprise. But here Buddha, or a Buddha. So we can see this is a pageant of King Minden leaving his palace on a visit to the Kyauktawgyi Buddha image at Mandalay, 1865. Let's look closer. So somewhere on something impressive we should see King Minden. Maybe that all of these pictures represent this pageant or parade. Must have been impressive with all those elephants. Probably decorated up. Maybe not more than what we see though. I think the king might be on that green elephant. Here's a whole series of pretty yellow and white pagodas. And it seems to wrap maybe around the entire complex. This structure is just one of the entry structures that we walked through to get into the temple, but I thought these creatures, bird-like creatures, were fascinating. And it's a nicely restored little building. Now I appear to be at this northeast corner of the Mandalay Palace and Fort, and right at the corner of the moat. Pretty impressive. It's a huge complex that was the king's palace and fortress. This one that I was looking for is the one we were just in, so that's good. The one that we want now, Shwenandaw Kaung, is across the street, so good. The perspective of the temple complex we were just in, or the pagoda complex we were just in, seen from outside and across the street. This incredible array of, I believe, stupas is the next complex we're going into. Starts with a S, Shen, I think it is. Alright, this complex is Sandamuni, S-A-N-D-A-M-U-N-I, and I would know that if I just read the sign. This is a telephoto view, narrow, down between this row of I don't know many stupas or pagodas. All of them presumably have one of these plaques which probably tell the story of the individual, either for the entire complex or who is gaining merit by being connected with this one particular small little pagoda, because we can go inside. These appear to be 16 deep. How many that means, I don't know. Somewhere there must be a count, probably on the internet. And up there is the pagoda that we were at earlier this morning on top of Mandalay Hil. I'm going to walk down here so we can get a sense of what it's like. So you can get a sense of what it's like.
See what I'm doing.
Is making these pieces, which will be for what you can see right here. You can see where he's cutting out the arches. These are the pieces, see, that he's cutting out. Those little things right there that he just gave me one of. And we're going into this edifice now. And if it's a pagoda, which it must be since you can go inside, it is a unique one in the sense that it is simply a series of tiers, if you will. Notice that this seems to have nothing to do with that, although the word on the right looks somehow familiar to me. So maybe this area is composed of two important places that I have on my list. This is a surprise. A huge interior, which accounts for the what I call tiers. And mosque-like in the sense of large and open. In this instance, you can imagine the people here, throngs of them. You can also imagine the Muslims with their prayer blankets spread out and rows of men bowing. Grates up there suggest that's a modern construction with some kind of air control system in this building. Wow, now we're underneath and you can see the allusion to the temples that we've seen made out of wood, including the one we saw yesterday. It was so pretty with these large pillars in this open area. What it's used for is a good question. Is, of course, here we have the same huge cement chintz, for lack of a better term, these entry stairways, if you will, but then instead of wood, an all cement building with wood interiors. Not terribly impressive, but certainly big if that impresses. Just seems like a great excuse for a big building. Okay, now we are at Shwenandaw Kaung Temple or Pagoda, and notice where that northeast corner of the moat is. And then we'll be going south from this temple and angle over and pick up the entranceway into Mandalay Fort, which is where you see the 4 circled of mine and the 6 below it. There's a fine teak monastery temple lavished in carved panels, gilded and decorated with glass mosaics. Inside, still in excellent condition. I'm hoping that's that building. There's 3 nagas carved on this corner. On each post, it looks like. Tell me these wouldn't be collector's items. God forbid anybody should start stealing this stuff. Rather short pillars here. But notice how they each have a decorative column or base, but I don't know that anyone's going to see it because I'm not sure you actually use this area down here. Now notice that this lower layer is quite a thick band of wood. It looks like there's maybe 3 boards there, one big one in the center and 2 not so big. Each quite detailed and carved, as well as the tier above, literally as to floors, but as to the wood that we're looking at, there's another row. So we'll take a look at some of that in detail. Climbing up then to this next level, we can walk up there, I think. And now we're looking at it closely. That looks like a bird. Another bird. Bird facing opposite direction. Two birds facing each other. Well, now we're looking at these bottom three boards. So let's take a look first at the top board. See if we can see any detail. Well, that looks, there's detail, but I can't make anything out. Down a ways, it doesn't look like there's any figures there, just graphics. With this middle panel, we can see that there are figures there. This looks like a rosette with something, maybe a Buddha or a gnat in the center. Four figures arrayed around it. Moving down this panel, some more graphics, all with figures. Probably somewhere there's an archaeologist who's hopefully captured this stuff for the future in case this thing burns, God forbid. Down at the bottom of those three, again, some figures. What they're doing here, I can't tell. But some graphics, whether they're vines or whatever, are intertwined. Same thing here. So maybe that's a repeating motif all the way around. Second level, and we're just looking at some detail around the door. And this is all dusty and dirty and weathered. Terribly unfortunate. Imagine what these things are worth. Look like they may have been reproductions at some point. Like, notice how crisp the lines are here and here and certainly here, but notice this one next to that. You can see the same thing. So maybe we have a cottage industry of people recreating those. Some kind of figure there intertwined in the foliage. And here the foliage goes down along the side of the door, and another personage there. And one at the bottom. There's some pretty detail along this portion on the second tier. Imagine, this should all be restored. The cost of reconstructing this would be monumental. Look at the detail of that carving. And notice this goes all the way up to the top. Each tier has this similar kind of intense graphic. Character, probably a Buddha or a gnat praying, it looks like, in front of a stupa or pagoda. And then, right alongside the wall that runs apparently from him, are individual little figures, each praying. Imagine the skill required to do this. And then here, for some reason, and it may be on a cobra, another figure, some more individuals, and another figure. Imagine the skill to create these daggone things. Close look at the bird motif that we saw. Now we are inside. My first impression is that the interior graphics are much better protected because they're all painted in gold. So they will last longer, and of course they're protected inside the building. Notice the precise crispness almost of the carved detail in these panels. The little characters here are better preserved, but some are crisp, like the ones up there on top, but the ones down below here, particularly the one on the right, not so crisp. That could be because of layers of paint, which is fine, because that'll preserve it, or something else. it all looks very rich in a wood-like way, as opposed to the gaudy, shiny gold of stone or plaster. But a beautiful masterpiece of architecture and carving. Imagine what it looked like when it was brand new. Unbelievable. One character on top of another character's shoulders. You wonder what that indicates. Is with our technologies of today, we could mass produce all of these components if we needed to. And one company could set up its 3D laser systems inside this temple and completely capture to the minutest detail everything, dimension, detail of sculptures, everything. The request not to touch, you can see that people have, because this is how they gain some connection with their gods. Military man. Nicely preserved carving. Just the detail in this. I don't know if this is metal or not. It looks like it's metal, but it should be carving on that wood.
Hello.
Now if these ribbons are overlaid or if they're carved, they're not carved into it. Interesting, this one person on another person thing. I've never seen that. Or at least I haven't noticed it before. This is at a corner post for the inner portion of the temple. Ladies are not allowed to enter, but I was, so I did. Started our day with a hike up to the top of Mandalay Hil. And we've been visited a temple complex. It may be that one just off to the right of the screen there. And there's the northeast corner of the moat. We're now in the center of that long side of the fortress, the King's Fortress, which is this. And there's the other half of this side alone. So I'm guessing this is the layout of the Royal Palace. Here are the towers that range down this wall. It looks pretty well preserved if this is the way it always has been. Now see, I tend to see all this stuff as cement, but that's probably wrong. What it probably originally was, if it still not is, excuse the English, is brick covered with plaster. On this wall we can see all that brick that the wall's made out of. Now inside this large square that's called Mandalay Palace and Fort, and we'll just ride down to the center and do a loop inside there because nothing else is available. All of this area is used by the military, except for the parts that are used by the tourist, which is a small part right down through there. This is the watch tower, I believe, or drum tower, I'm not sure. Don't know if we can go up, I doubt it. Can't go up, but that's how you would go up if you could. These are bronze hero statues. I think every country's got at least one. And I don't mean that with disrespect. What's interesting are the different clothing that they wear. Perhaps indicating why they were heroes. Some military, perhaps some scholars. Certainly some religious, you would think. Some revolutionists. Here he would have held some kind of spear, I think. He has a powerful face, doesn't he? Notice what historians can gain from the dress of a person. It's probably a warrior's outfit at one time. Version of the atomic bomb has the ring of a temple, but it's not.
Precious stones, jade, sapphire.
Picture of King Mindon from 1853 to 1878. These were his queens. Remember, he lived in an enlightened area when a man could have as many women, at least a king could, as he could afford. Other countries achieve the same objective through somewhat different means. So there's something else I can climb up. This is an interesting design for supporting that overhang. Notice how these people do it in a rather primitive, simple way versus the Chinese. I wonder if that's done in silver. Wouldn't surprise me. This is the Hall of Victory, a gilded building apparently, or at least once was. That should mean covered with gold. This is where important persons were met by the king and audience, including pigeons. Another similar building, and more buildings as we pass down through here. The royal throne room. I assume all these buildings are going to look pretty much the same, and there's nothing else in them. More royal buildings. This is the central palace here. Guess we'll have to take our shoes off and go in here. This was called the Central Palace, the king's living chamber, because the other buildings were built by marking glass aiming, probably some form of sextant. From the center palace, the drive stake marking of ground plans. Important celebrations, so forth, were carried on here. So this would have been a very important room in its day. Important things took place here. Of course, it all looks very antiseptic now. But once upon a time, probably a beehive of scurrying attendants, slowly meandering and wandering and contemplating important people. Imagine minions scurrying to the top. Oh, actually, I think this was for important people also, where the steps would have been much steeper. Not exactly sure what you could see from the top of the watchtower with the trees. I think my hostel is somewhere to the left of that building under construction, clothed in green something or other. Perhaps that was once a royal bath. Here's a man who deals with the Myanmar tourist souvenir business in the right way. Wake me up if you really want something. Here, there's another gate for checking your ticket on the assumption that somehow you managed to either cross the bridge unnoticed or swim the moat and then get past all the guard posts and the ticket office and then negotiated your way in here the rest of the way, or hired a helicopter to get in. This may be the imperial water tank or cistern. Probably had quite a crew working here. There's the royal pond or cistern, but you'll notice I'm standing on a pile of what look like rocks, surrounded by other little mountains of rocks, what look like rocks, but they're not. I mean, there may be rocks there, but these are, if they're rocks, they're also worked with plaster to appear to be rocks or to appear to be something to somebody. My guess is that this area that I'm in, notice there's a canal here and a canal there. I'm guessing that they served to move water into that pond, but they may have served as, at the very least, a pretty water feature surrounding this mountain that I'm on. Notice these stairs, the pad, and that level down there, and another level here, and apparently a walkway to get into that. Here you see more canals, and my guess is that this was at the very least a water feature and beautiful garden system for the king and queen and his court. And they may even had some method of paddling or being paddled or poled about those canals. Here's an old fighter, and I'm not sure whose it is. Usually it's ours, but I don't think it is. Forget what my notes said. Obviously, the guy got tangled in a barbed wire fence. That's not a good idea when you're trying to fly at altitude. Oh, I think it's a great show. And if people believe that he's doing it by himself. Apparently the gas tank, somewhere I saw. Imagine when this once flew and two men put their lives at risk in it. Wonder if they ever saw actual combat. There looks like some kind of military half-track. But you can see how this thing lays out in various terraces and steps. And you can imagine all of those spaces in between the rocks, as well as all of these areas down here, covered with perhaps flowers or foliage or a mix of both. And you can see there's different kinds of stones here. Here we've got the smooth ones, where over here the artist was more inclined towards pebbly ones, and some of which actually had curious designs on them. There, an even higher spot, although that looks like it would have been added, a temple over there, or some kind, or a pagoda, excuse me, a stupa. But can't you just imagine this being all very pretty with these trees and flowers and the king and queen being paddled slowly down, giving directions to which way they'd like to go this time. In the distance, I think a train, so we'll see a train in a few moments. These terraces were made just for meandering. And once upon a time, the king would have gone the same way I'm going. Why would he have gone this way? Because he felt like it. Did he have the queen or one of his consorts with him? I don't know. Maybe. Made out of brick also. These things I'm calling hills may have been created from scratch, as were these canals. Notice that all of them are lined with brick, and they may have been lined even on the bottom with brick to reduce the amount of water loss. So this was no slouch of a dalliance for the king and queen. They spent some bucks on this, or at least somebody's bucks on it. And even now I'm on an island. There's another canal over to my left, as you can see, so who knows how far this little park ranges. When and why the train got here, who knows? And how extensive was this park? I don't know. Is this a recent innovation? Probably. But I can imagine, just like the Chinese emperors, they might have had little houses where they could sit and have lunch or chat or read or write poetry. And there used to be a narrow gauge railroad that ran around in here. Whether that train was the train or not, I don't know.